Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast. Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Jodi Scott. Jodi Scott is a dynamic force in the realm of health and wellness. Armed with a master's degree in health psychology, she specializes in the intriguing field of psychoneuroimmunology. Founder of Green Goo, Jodi is the visionary behind renowned brands such as Green Goo First Aid, Southern Butter, and Good Goo CBD. Her passion lies in pioneering plant-based products using innovative lipid extraction techniques that have earned global acclaim. Jodi's journey unfolds further with the introduction of Melodial Global Health, where she explores emerging markets, including cannabis and psychedelics, pushing the boundaries of health and wellness. Beyond her impressive career, Jodi gracefully balances her role as a devoted spouse and proud parent, staying connected to the natural world, community service, and personal growth. Well, good afternoon, Jodi. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Brian. How's it going?
Great. I appreciate you jumping on and getting a conversation started behind the microphone. This is so fun. I traverse the globe, 50 countries and growing, and just love, again, meeting new people and hearing their stories. So Jodi, jumping into your questions here, let's talk about your career in health and well-being. You're a senior executive, an entrepreneur, now the founder and CEO of Green Goo. Could you share with our audience the secret to your career growth and what inspires you?
Absolutely. Thank you. So much fun stuff in that question. So I have a master's in health psychology. We started Green Goo, my mom's sister and I. My sister's an herbalist and a midwife, and I was pre-med at the time. And for us, our passion really was inspired by the first aid category. And what we observed was that the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they were told products like Neosporin, calamine, hydrocortisone were the only products that could get the job done. And they lived these very clean and healthy lifestyles. But when you opened up their first aid cabinet, they made every concession. And then what was further interesting is that the conventional consumer, they didn't care about the ingredients. They just wanted something that performed better. They were dealing with chronic skin conditions. And really, the first aid category only accommodates to acute skin conditions, used for a handful of days. Discontinue if you don't find the symptom relief, seek medical care because it would be toxic to continue to use. And so we found an opportunity that perhaps we could make plant-based solutions that were superior in efficacy and also bring a lifestyle brand, hence the name Green Goo, and sustainability. Because another observation is that we noticed all these tubes being thrown in the landfill. And, it was an opportunity to bring more sustainability into this space. And what we really elevated was our process. So my sister being an herbalist and me with pre-med, we were able to study the plants in a very molecular way. So compounding from plants, if you will. And what we found is that there was a process by which you could extract from these plants and blend these plants to really perform in a superior way. And so our process is probably the biggest unique component that contributes to the efficacy. Yes, the ingredients are important and we source these herbs that have high efficacy, but it's the process. And so we actually don't buy pre-made extracts that are made on the market, take it to our manufacturing facility, put it in a container, like much of what you see on the market. We actually bring the raw material. So we bring the plants to our manufacturing facility where we take it through this unique extraction process, really protect the integrity of the plant, and we yield high amounts of the medicinal properties, which then is combined into these unique blends that go into these products. And that's really why these products perform so well.
That is just amazing. I love to hear, I would say in this last year, 3 years about doing podcasts, we're seeing a lot more attention around alternative medicine and other types of just natural type of healing products that are hitting the market. And I'd say this year, you're probably like the sixth person on the podcast here that talks about this and goes into it. And I see kind of a trend here, I think. And in my opinion, I think we're going back to the old ways, which is not a bad thing, right? So that's awesome. So switching gears, Jodi, if we could talk a little bit more about that, how can the shift to plant-powered nutrition affect physical and mental health?
Well, to your point, the plant renaissance is here, the plant-based renaissance. And it's pretty exciting. 10 years ago when we first started this, And I was meeting with, pharmacy buyers and I was saying, hey, I've got a plant-based alternative to Neosporin. They just looked at me like, really? But now there's so much more research behind why and how these plants work. And so when I think of sharing with a customer or, patients and so forth, why plant powered is so important. And I think to your point, first of all, there's a lot of chemicals that are in our products and in our environment. And if you can eliminate things like paraben, phthalates, and different fragrances, yes, we have been able to identify that it changes ourselves biologically, but we also have side effects to that. These are endocrine disruptors. They can mess with our cortisol. And then a lot of that can further exacerbate the issue that we're trying to resolve. So for example, with eczema, inflammation and reducing the pain is incredibly important. But oftentimes some of these products like phthalates and parabens are actually exacerbating your symptoms. And so what I love is how these plants can offer so much. I mean, calendula, for example, that's a plant that we use across all of our products. It's an antifungal, anti-yeast, antimicrobial. It's wonderful at accelerating the wound healing process, but it also has some really unique plant stem cell properties. And if you're familiar with telomeres, this is a really interesting concept and really new in the skin science, which is the telomeres are sort of the end caps to your DNA. And over time, these telomeres shorten in length and eventually your DNA becomes exposed. And we can look at that, our telomeres and our longevity. And historically, we looked at, and I say historically, telomeres are very much new in the science, I would say, in mainstream now. We've known about telomeres for a while, but what's so interesting is that we always thought that like taking vitamins like nootropics and different plant-based vitamins were some of the biggest drivers, mitochondrial cell synthesis were the products that and the things we needed to ingest in order to help with our telomeres. But we have found that in our epidermis, there's actually more enzymes in our epidermis that help lengthen the telomeres. And what's super cool is calendula, for example, is a plant that has plant stem cell properties that is shown to improve our telomere length. And so what I love about that is we're seeing now, not just anecdotal science, meaning I used this plant-based product, I used Green Goo, I had eczema and it worked, but we're actually having more data that is supporting why we can have positive systemic responses to plant-based solutions. And there's even some really great science now that's out there in terms of mindfulness and skincare. And, there's been some really interesting studies to show that being mindful can impact inflammation, stress hormones. And so we started adding different essential oils to coincide sort of that Ayurvedic practice to coincide with the various herbs that we're seeing that are really stimulating your cell regeneration and preserving, being, an antioxidant, if you will, so that we can elevate that even further. Because we really like to look at this as like a holistic skincare approach.
Thank you. And I just love hearing you talk about this. I can literally see the passion. This is an audio podcast, but I can see the passion through the microphone, and that's awesome. And you just unpacked a lot of things around what you do. And I think what's important is it just, for me anyway, probably others in the audience will want to do a little bit more research and find out more about the benefits of these plant-powered nutrition. So thank you. And Jodi, we're going to jump into another question about alternative paths here. What advice do you have for listeners curious about alternative paths to well-being?
My daughter's 12 and, she's inundated with all kinds of marketing, use this product because it will make your lips plumper or what have you. And so I try to simplify it for her and give her autonomy and ownership in her overall health. And so we have an acronym in our home called SHAMAN, which is just really fun, right? Because just saying shaman gives you this sense of being and what it stands for. So S is sleep, And, the power of sleep is so important. I'm always like, add to your sleep bank because you might not have that in a couple of days and you can pull from it because sleep is just so important. H is hydration. Hydration, not just from the beverages you choose. I mean, obviously water being vital and the nutritive properties that you can have in water, but even the products you put on, you got to think of your cells as being hungry for hydration. And there's wonderful ingredients like aloe vera, rosehip oil. There's different plants that contribute to the hydration of your skin and your body. A is antioxidants. So thinking about this from a food perspective, also from an environmental perspective. And then the products. I love when my sister and I are formulating and looking at the plant profile for antioxidants and the benefits that it can have for you systemically. And coming back to this, of course, is mindfulness. This is sort of my full circle master's health psychology. And I love this relationship of mind body medicine and that there's more science and data now to support that mindfulness can impact you, not only psychologically, but physically. I mean, there's evidence to support that 12 minutes a day of just intentional practice. It doesn't even have to be quote unquote meditation. It could be looking at the clouds and really just looking at the detail for 12 minutes. You start to change your brain from the limbic system overriding and what we call the sage brain. And that has impacts on the various hormones and pathways that you engage every day. And you will have a reduction in stress. You will have reduced inflammation. And then the last A is avoid. Avoid the parabens, the phthalates, the fragrances, the chemicals, looking at your labels and really, we joke around, if you can't eat it, you shouldn't wear it. And it just gives you some perspective of some of the things you may be inundated with. And then N is nutrition, and just knowing that, and nutrition can be, again, your food source, and it can go back to your body. Again, food for your skin. Your skin is your largest organ. And I think we're only coming into an era where we're starting to understand this organ. It used to just be, hey, you're in anatomy and physiology, skin is your largest organ. It's just a shield. And perhaps it has a lot more influence on your overall homeostasis and health and wellness, and perhaps even your mindfulness.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You really, for me anyway, and our listeners, acronyms can be very helpful and ways to remember some of those. So I think shaman is an amazing acronym, and that's something I got to add to my daily living for sure. Appreciate that, Jodi. And Jodi, we are a technology platform and podcast. We ask everybody on the podcast how they're leveraging tech. We ask a lot of our guests if they're leveraging any new or emerging tech in their business. And if not, maybe you found a cool tool or app you might share with us today.
Absolutely. I love this. So we are just in the beginning stages. We have an app that we developed called Self Gratitude Journal. It's available on the Apple App Store. And we're not done developing this, but it is available. And I'm continuing to utilize this again in the way of offering a holistic skincare approach to our customers. And so the gratitude journal, and we've just found so much more science behind gratitude is an element of mindfulness. And there's a number of studies in the Journal of Behavioral Medicine where they see the relationship between gratitude and your skin health and overall mental health, and the value of journaling every day, whether it is unloading some stressful encounters or appreciating some moments or setting an intention for what you would like to do. And I personally have been journaling, oh my goodness, since I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and has kept most of them. When I was pregnant with my daughter, I kind of shifted my journaling to her. And so it's kind of fun to see the journey of the journaling as it went from me developing myself to then sharing stories with my daughter since I was pregnant with her. And then interestingly enough, started journaling a business journal and sort of the entrepreneurial experience and the roller coaster and the challenges that are encountered. And I found that it has really served me well. And I want to make sure that I'm always walking the talk and doing the work myself as I'm, bringing Green Goo to everyone. And so we'll continue to work on this journal app, but I hope that it can provide, a deeper sense of well-being and eventually also, as you continue to use it, impact your skincare as well.
I love it. There's so many apps that people either are working on or have come out, especially this last year, as you know, with AI. But there are so many amazing apps that allow people to tap into some amazing resources. Even if they're remote or their Wi-Fi is turned off, we've got literally AI therapists now coming out on phones. And this is just awesome. So I appreciate your perspective on the app that you're building. And that's certainly going to resonate with our audience. And Jodi, it was such a pleasure having you on today, and I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you as well.
Bye for now.